Hi guys, welcome to your anti-sitting flex class. So we're going to do a bunch of different stretches. We're not going to hold them for as long as we do in a normal like yin flex sort of setting, but we will be holding them for sort of around the 2 minute mark. And what I want to really focus on is getting those hips open again, really opening up into our hip flexors. You know, it's been a time of sitting and doing not a lot, or maybe you're still working from home, and just to try to reverse that like hunched over, sitting down, backs falling into a couch kind of feeling. Let's get everything open back up again. So because it's a flex, let's start lying down on our backs. Just making yourself super cozy. So if you have pillows or blocks that you'd like to use, that might be really helpful. You might even want to grab like a folded up blanket or something, just to make yourself sort of as comfy and as cozy as you can while we give our bodies a bit of longer attention than they might have experienced recently. So you can bring your feet down to the mat. You might like to take your legs all the way out, or if your low back is feeling a little bit tight, let's take our feet out to mat's distance and just drop your knees in to support each other. Then we're going to take one hand onto our heart and one hand onto our belly. Really make sure those shoulders are down your back and open, and just start to find a beautiful, deep, steady breath. And while we're here, just noticing if your shoulders are lifting or if your top hand, so the hand that's on your chest, is lifting first. I'm going to see if we can shift that breath down into the belly instead. So trying to let that bottom hand around your lungs, just underneath the ribs, rise, while really your whole chest stays pretty soft. I'm going to start in a twist that really opens everything up all at once. So bring your knees together. We're going to drop our knees over to the left. So shuffle that left hip into the center of your body. Now, if you can, try and keep that right shoulder down. If it pops up a little, maybe you can pop a block or a towel underneath there. And then bring your right foot onto your left knee. We're going to press everything back. So once you do that, you might need to readjust your hips again. So we've got our right foot sort of pressing onto the top of our left knee. So now our left knee and our nose are sort of all in one line. And then see if you can draw that right knee over just a little bit more. It's okay if that leg extends out a little bit more. And then that right hand is either cactus to open out, or maybe see if you can reach down and hold onto the top of that left foot. So this is our cat's got its tail pose. And then we're just going to really breathe into the back of that hip. And as you maybe close down the eyes, just observe really where you feel this. So for you, it might be shoulders, it might be lower back, it might be across the ribs and the obliques and into that top right hip. Just take like 2 or 3 more breaths here. And then letting go of that foot, if you have the hold, we'll draw our knees back together. And just gently roll back onto your back. Bringing your hips back down to the mat. And then we'll bring our feet together and start to roll over onto your right hip. Just gonna unlodge myself here. So trying to draw that right foot kind of in line with our hips. We'll bring our left foot on top and then take that press back. So we can shuffle onto our right hip to get a little bit more comfortable. Opening that left hand back, see if you can hold onto the top of the right foot. And then we'll draw our right knee across. So that knee might be further away, or it might be hugged in a little bit more. You might want to grab a block or a pillow just to pop under that knee, and that can feel really supportive, especially if you get really tight hips or have any sort of glute knee pain. You might even like to put some calm or meditative music on in the background or something as well. Just really carve out a space that feels far more relaxing, far more grounding. And we'll take just 2 more breaths here. And you can let go of any props and start to draw your legs back together. We'll come all the way back over onto our back. And you can either again heel toe those feet out and drop the knees in, or if it feels okay, hug your knees to your chest, and we'll take a few circles in one direction, in the other. And as we start to make our way up to a seated position, your choice here, if you would like to just sit all the way up. The back? Okay. So, I'll go again. So from here, if it feels okay, we're going to take a few rock and rolls along the spine. If it doesn't feel great for you, you can just sit up in any comfortable way. You might need to cross your ankles or just hold onto the back of your thighs. And we'll take a few little roly-polies. It doesn't matter if you fall, if you go a little bit too slowly or a little bit too aggressively. Either way, that's the direction we're headed. We'll go 2 more times. Let the breath and the momentum take you, and then cross your shins. We'll come all the way up. And we're going to step our right foot to the top of the mat. We're going to set ourselves up for our lizard lunge. So our right foot comes to the outside edge of the mat, and you can either have the toes pointing forward, or if it feels better for your hips, take a little turn and press them out, sort of on a 45-degree angle. And then slide that left leg back, so we've got a fair bit of space. And this should feel like a really big opening here. So especially if you have been sitting a lot, this might feel a little bit intense. So just go slowly. Like I said, we're going to be here for a few breaths. So it's okay if it takes a little bit longer to open than it might usually. If you've got your blocks or your pillows or something as well, you might like to come up onto them to give you a little bit more space. If that does start to open a little bit more, then you can maybe come down onto that block. What we want to do when we come down though is try to avoid sort of dropping all the way over onto that left hip. So trying to stay a little bit more lifted onto your knee. If you need to bring like a towel or a blanket or fold your mat over to support that knee, that might feel nice as well. And you can really drop into that space as more presents itself. So we want to try to avoid moving constantly, but if there's maybe a little bit more room to drop in as you go, that might feel nice. And drawing our hands back up, lifting back up through the chest. Just pop that block out of the way for a second. And we'll sink back a little. If you need to take a counter stretch or something here, absolutely go for it. If you're ready, we're going to heel toe that right leg across the top of the mat. So our shin it doesn't have to be straight parallel. Again, it doesn't really matter. It's more about like where your bones are and where you're open. So that right shin's going to be semi-parallel to the top of the mat. It doesn't really matter, as long as it's not like folded all the way back, really. And then you can either stay up on your hands here for your pigeon pose. Something you might like to do as well. So when we come forward, we want to stay pretty square across that shin. So you might like to bring your hand down onto that left hip, just as a reminder to drop it down. If you can, maybe even bring it onto both hips and give yourself sort of your own adjustment here. And then if it's available, you might like to come down onto the forearms, or maybe come all the way down, either onto your hands, or take your hands all the way out. And bringing your forehead down to the mat, just finding that full surrender. And it might be tempting here to roll onto that right hip or to roll away from it, but just try to stay centered. And just thinking about grounding your left hip as equally as your right. Just take 2 more breaths here. And then gently starting to shift ourselves back up. We're going to lift up and start to come back around to our left side. So a few options here. You can either pop yourself back into a plank just to step up and back through. If that right knee needs a little bit more of a stretch, maybe take it all the way back into your down dog or any other variation that feels good for you. And then shifting your gaze to the top of the mat, we'll come through onto our left side. So left foot comes from any direction. You don't have to come out of a down dog to take that foot out to the side. And again here, take a little shift through the hips. So toes point forward or out to that 45 degree. And then maybe you want to get a block or a pillow involved as well. You can slide back on your right knee to make sure there's lots of space, although likely we're already feeling it. And just breathing not only into that hip flexor, but into our hips here as well. So that little rotation might feel kind of intense. And then we can come down onto the block or onto the mat. And really letting the breath guide you and lead you. So especially when things get tough, trying to make those exhales longer than the inhales. Really getting into our parasympathetic nervous system. And one last breath. And we'll wiggle our hands back up. Lifting back up. Give yourself a minute if you need it. If you're ready, we'll straight heel toe that foot across. Bring your shin down. Maybe take a little flex into that left foot. We'll shuffle our right knee back. Just quickly as well, take a peek back at your right foot. We don't want it all the way out to the side. Try to keep it somewhat in line with your hips. And then thinking about sinking the hips down, maybe giving yourself that little adjustment on one side or both, and then keeping the lift in the chest. You can come forward however you like, onto the block, onto a pillow, keeping yourself supported. Remembering to think about evenness in the hips. We'll take 2 more breaths. And then nice and gently making your way back up. This time we're going to meet lying down on our bellies, so do take those few extra breaths if you need. If you want to come back into that down dog to release your right foot, your left hip, then absolutely do. Or if you want, just make your way down onto the ground, being nice and gentle, nice and soft. We're going to take a little chest and shoulder opener as well, so we can peel that shoulder blade back. So we'll cactus into that left arm, bringing your arm out in line with your shoulder. Some people prefer to take their hand all the way out. I like my elbow bent, and then tent into your right fingertips. Take a little roll onto your left hip, and you can bend your knees or keep them straight and tuck your right foot back behind. Now again, some people like to use that right hand. I prefer it to press into the ground and keep opening my shoulder. Others like to take it back behind. There's no right and wrong answer, it's just what your body needs. One more. And then back through the center. Bring that right leg with you. Cactus the right shoulder. Press into your left fingertips. Roll over onto the left hip. Take a little check in. And if you're good, keep bringing that left leg all the way back behind you. And then do whatever you need to do with that left hand. There's no real winning or max in this pose. It's just what your body responds the best to. And then dropping back through the center. Bring your hips back. We're going to gently make our way up to sit up. So if you need to take a few seconds to come up, if you need to take a little round through your spine to come through, just do whatever you need to do. And then we'll take one last big hip opener. So we've definitely done this one in classes before. So I'll take you through a few different options. Our ultimate goal is to bring our right ankle on top of our left knee. So we'll set ourselves up by taking our bottom shin semi-parallel to the top of the mat, so as much as possible, and then pull those toes back towards you. Then we're going to take that other foot, flex out through your foot. We want the outside edge of our foot to match up with the outside edge of your thigh. Now this is pretty intense on the outside of your hip. So if that's not available, then just wiggle that knee more into the center, cross that leg over, and you're just going to sit in this nice little twist and drop that hip down towards the ground. If that's fine, if you're fine to keep going, then we'll bring our ankles up. And it's not here, I guess, is the only thing. You can go here if this is all that's available, but if your foot's on the inside of your thigh and you don't feel much, then pick it back up and bring it all the way over, because we really want to look for that outside leg stretch. And then from here, you're going to start to walk forward. And again, use a block, a pillow, whatever you need, forearms to the mat or whatever, and take a surrender here. And instead of trying to run away from it or question yourself and try and get out of the stretch, see if you can focus on the areas that feel really tight. And as you focus on them, send lots of breath there to open it up. Really consciously think about all those muscles and tendons and everything that's going on in there, relaxing and releasing and making more space. And again, we can do that by lengthening our exhales. If there's a little bit more space, you're reaching a little bit deeper for the last 3 breaths. And then gently walking your hands back in, we'll take a little lift. Unhook that ankle. And then you can take the leg out and kind of wiggle your legs side to side or give them a little shake, whatever you need. And then we'll take it over to the other side. So that leg that was just on top is going to come parallel to the top of the mat. Again, you can start here and just give yourself a little twist. Either way, we're going to open that outer hip, or we're going to drive that shin parallel to the top of the mat, flex back through your foot, so creating more tension. This is kind of a floppy ankle and it's not going to do enough for us, but if we press back, we're more engaged. And then flex that other heel, see if you can stack it. And then as we come forward, maybe even shift your hips, so again, we're centered over that front shin, and then we're going to start to come forward. And of course, with all these breaths, making sure we've got the time to lean into it. Not trying to rush it. You can adjust that foot. If it's a little bit tender on your muscles, sometimes there's a little bit of a self-massage here as well, which doesn't feel awesome all of the time. And then as you can, sort of folding in. And maybe seeing if there's a little bit deeper for the last 3 breaths. And then walking our hands back up, and we're going to come down into our Shavasana. So give yourself any little wiggles or shakes that you need. And we'll start to come back down. All the way down, maybe hug your knees in, give them a little squeeze before we head to Shavasana. And when you're ready, we'll take our legs all the way out. Slide shoulders down your back. Connecting one hand to your heart and one hand to your belly, or opening your palms up. And sinking back into the breath. So all of these poses are really helpful for, again, opening up our hips, getting into our chest and our shoulders, helping to get our posture back, helping to stop us from that rounding, which indicates anxiety and stress to our body. So the more we can open back up, the better we'll feel. The yogi in me says that we should be doing this, quietly in a fairly darkened room with some nice music, but if that's not for you, you can even run through these like watching TV or whatever you need. Just giving your body the space to open up and being really gentle with it as well. So you can hang out in your Shavasana for a little bit longer if you're ready to get moving. We'll wiggle fingers and toes and reach our arms all the way up overhead, stretching all the way from fingertips to tippy toes. And then keeping your eyes closed, we'll start to draw ourselves up to a comfortable seated position. Drawing your palms together, thumbs in between the eyebrows, and just taking a moment to give a little thank you note to your body. So thank you for joining me for your restorative practice, and I'll see you next time. Namaste. Thanks, guys.